You don't seem to make me tense. That's worth more than dollars and cents. Let's throw caution to the wind. I believe we could try to put our things together and find a little place and settle in. Home feels like an open door. My heart's an open window. Draw the curtain when you're certain.
I think housing affordability is affecting all communities across BC, and particularly on Vancouver Island. I think we were immune to it for a number of years, but over the last 5 years, our housing affordability has gone out the window.
I'm a transplant here in Cumberland from Ontario. In about late 70s, I came here, early 80s. I spent 14 years, 7 years ago, living abroad and then working around the world from there, and came back to Cumberland 7 years ago now and found it a whole different place. Cumberland was always a neat little, kind of a hippie artist, musician, just a really cool place to live. There was, everything from artists to, dancers, musicians, it's really where I wanted to fit in. It was just a really, really cool place to live. So that's what brought me to Cumberland.
Well, the last mine closed in '63. They boarded up half of this town. No one down in Chinatown. They tore the whole place down. Some cut and run and they said we were done, but the phoenix rose from the flame. It all may look a little different now, but there's some things that don't change.
As far back as I can remember, my memories, go back to, maybe I was around 3 or 4 years old. My father drove an oil truck for a Matt Brown, which was Harvey's dad. And I can remember, going down to Chinatown. I can remember, stopping at the Maples, because we weren't allowed to drink pop. So when I was out with my dad, he used to sneak one there, right? But Cumberland then, so that I was born in 1950, so far back as I can remember, maybe 53 or 54. It was everything was still sort of working then. The Sabre River mine was was operating.
Sometimes at night when it's dark and quiet, you can hear old Father Time.
Yeah, the first house I rented in the valley was a 4-bedroom rancher on 5.5 acres for $750. I lived there for 5 years. There was 300-year-old trees around the property, and several years. I lived there for 5 years, and then all those trees got cut down, and now there's a bunch of townhouses there. But there was lots of availability in housing. Rent was cheap, and it's plentiful. Well, being a music enthusiast and a musician in Cumberland has been awesome. It's been an amazing environment to make music in Cumberland. There's a lot of amazing, eclectic, interesting people in Cumberland who support music, musicians who support other musicians. And it's been a pretty fertile ground to create music for the last 20 years. I think been really fortunate. There's been a lot of big names thanks to some local promoters coming through Cumberland, much more than even bigger cities on the island. So we've been really lucky, and the support in the valley keeps these musicians coming from far and wide, and Cumberland's actually made a name for itself within these music circles because of that. So a lot of really high quality music has come through Cumberland in the last 20 years.
In 2004, latter part of 2004, beginning of 2005, I was very interested in a band called Spearhead, Michael Franti and Spearhead, and put in an offer for them, and somehow or other they agreed to come and play in Cumberland. And that was the first Cumberland Village Works Festival, and I believe it was on Sunday, September the 5th, 2005. And 2,000 people showed up at the park, and from that point forward, there was kind of a festival scene here. We did a festival pretty much every year up until current years and until the COVID thing. And we have been running entertainment at the Waverly and other venues. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. The quality of entertainment is pretty high quality, I would say, for such a small community. And we've had everybody here from Broken Social Scene to Kanon and Xavier Rudd. Yeah, it's been a huge influx of great musicians over the years.
And I'm close to you. My heart's not beating like it's supposed to. My lungs not breathing, but I'ma play it cool like you might not be seen. My anxiety fueled by the latest false confidence, the stars and confidence. Wish I was a conqueror, who never faced the consequence. I'm just a garment of the black and common continent, speaking all I can and open you into the lines. And I almost touching, almost just something. Almost never knew just because it wasn't. Doesn't mean it could never happen, now does it? I guess that we could check for the rest of the direct deposit. Ha! Look at me.
We've got this amazing place that keeps getting better, and people want to be here. And unfortunately, because of pre-existing deals with developers, it's turning into sprawl instead of densification or upward building, which ultimately, all it inhibits is the aesthetic of a town and maybe the sight lines. And those are quite frivolous when you compare them to ecological devastation or unhoused people being their own epidemic, and being just relegated to a shameful existence of hiding away because of the judgment of the eyes of the world. Because when you're unhoused, you can't hide. There's nowhere you can go. There's nowhere you can protect yourself from the cruel reality of what people think of you.
There's no question that gentrification we're in the midst of it. And I feel like the first people that kind of get squeezed out are people that are a lot of the people that moved here in the first place, people that came here for the arts and culture or to create arts and culture. And it's the irony, those are the people that are the ones that are getting squeezed out because they don't have high-paying jobs necessarily, and they're not able to necessarily afford the big mortgages. And I think that it is challenging and will continue to be challenging. And I'm not exactly sure where we go with that. I know a lot of people are working in committees and trying to make spaces for different people. We have an extra room. A lot of people have a little extra suite in their house.
My specialist, both my kidney and my endocrinologist, which diabetic specialist, told me I have 3 years to live unless I get an insulin pump. Because of not being able to work, I ended up on social services on a disability. So my income was fixed. $7,300 for an insulin pump at the time. The government wasn't covering it in British Columbia at the time. So where am I going to get this money? Well, Cumberland just stepped right up to the plate. Every musician, the bar owners, the word got out, Tim needs an insulin pump. He's got 3 years to live. He's been around here forever. We need to help him out. We need $7,300. So boom, there's a fundraiser. There's people coming. Every musician, every artist was donating paintings. Everything went towards my insulin pump. So they raised enough money, and here I am with my insulin pump, still alive and well, 6 years later. Oh, I had my foot amputated too, so that was waiting for my insulin pump. So again, everyone else kind of stepped up and supported me and just helped me out until I could get around and whatnot. You need a ride, you need groceries, you need insulin, what do you need? Just call me. And that's how it is all the time.
I initially moved back into my parents' house until I was able to, by only the chance of me knowing so many people in this town from having grew up here for so long, I found a job at the hostel where I could live in a suite at the hostel. And that lasted for a year because I was living at my job, and that is intense, right? And so the pandemic hit and I had to move back into my parents' basement suite because I couldn't deal with the anxiety of being around tourists at the hostel or going back to work in an environment where I'd have to do hospital level cleaning procedures on all the hostel rooms, and the stress was just by far too much. So I'm in my parents' basement again, by choice and by privilege, frankly. I'm on the privileged end of people in my demographic right now. I have friends who are unhoused, friends who have tenuous relationships with abusive family or no relationships at all, who pass through town when they can.
My coat's not long enough to live in town no more. My coat's not long enough to live in town no more. Picked it up this morning off my bedroom floor. Said my coat's not long enough to live in town. Style is fit, fashion and taste. My hoodie and jean jacket both fall to my waist. Trends come and go, stick your nose out the door. My coat's not long enough to live in town. My coat's not long enough to live in town no more. My coat's not long enough to live in town no more. Saw it on the register at the grocery store. Said my coat's not long enough to live in town. Don't judge me by my sweater, but judge me by my sleeve. It's where you put your heart that matters, or that's what I believe. All my friends in vests know what I'm hurting for. Said my coat's not long enough to live in town. My coat's not long enough to live in town no more. My coat's not long enough to live in town no more. I've got what the house on Camp Road wouldn't settle for. My coat's not long enough to live in town. They tell you make a budget to make it affordable. I put my pennies in my pocket, but it must have had a hole. But really, what am I saving money for? My coat's not long enough to live in town. My coat's not long enough to live in town no more. My coat's not long enough to live in town no more. I've got what that house on Camp Road wouldn't settle for. My coat's not long enough to live in town. Gotta figure out the ending there.
Finally had to leave. That was March, so I mean, we're talking 2021 right now. So, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. March isn't the warmest month of the year here, and we're also in the middle of a rental crisis. I'm a handicapped person who has to get around with a service dog. So here I am looking for a place in a community that I can't afford anymore. One that I'm basically from, other than being a transplant. I'm basically from this community, Cumberland, and I couldn't live here anymore, so I had to look at other options.
Well, the stores have filled up. The mountain bikers have shown up en masse. It's gotten a lot busier in town. The availability for housing is a lot less. As far as music is concerned, the last 10 years have been amazing for music. How it's changed, I mean, it's just getting busier. Concerts are getting sold out every time early, which is great. But the availability for tickets are less, I would say. But the high quality music that keeps coming through has maintained, and we've been really lucky.
The feds largely stepped out of housing in the 70s and 80s, and there has been almost no investment in non-market housing. Communities across BC have a very small percentage of non-market housing. And when I say that, I mean housing that is affordable for average incomes. And so with this lack of investment, we've just seen the market take over. And basically housing prices have tripled since the 70s and income levels have stayed the same. So of course we have a problem. We have a huge problem. And I'm really fearful about what's going to happen in the next 5 years if we don't make some major changes.
My two sons who their families have lived here since 1889 on my mom's side and 1911 on my dad's side. They cannot buy a house here. They would have to move, and they don't want to move, and I don't want them to move either, right? So it's for someone that has sold, say, a house in Surrey for $700,000, or more, can come here and they can pay $500,000 for a house that's worth $50,000, basically. I don't like that part of it. And as far as all the new ones that are being built, well, I guess, they're going to build new ones everywhere, but unfortunately our kids that were, born and raised here, not too many of them are going to be, doctors and lawyers, who maybe could buy. So that's something that I'm not too happy about.
Well, the entire prospect is a challenge. I mean, there's little to no affordable housing left in Cumberland. People are getting priced out by the day around here, so it's very concerning. As a councillor, we've taking steps to bring affordable housing to the village. Just this last year, unfortunately, a grant we were expecting, we didn't get this year for an affordable housing project that's shovel ready. So hopefully next year we'll be getting that grant. But housing is getting sparse, and rental availabilities are next to nothing. So it's been very difficult.
I'm now living in a tiny little room in Courtenay, paying $650 with 6 other people in the house. Hoping to get back into Cumberland, which your second question is, it's seeming pretty much impossible. I'm paying $65 for 3 months of PO Box rentals. I'm thinking about pulling that out because, an affordable place for me and my dog, and again, he's my life. He needs a place. He needs some room. I can't just live in a shoebox. It's not looking good for integrating back into my community.
The system needs changing. Our idea of housing needs changing. And we really need to enable and incentivize the type of housing we want in our communities. We see a ton of single family. It's not affordable. We do see apartments going up now, which is great. A lot of rental apartments are being built now because it's profitable. It's a safe place to hold money. But everything in between is hard to develop, and we're just not seeing what we need. Townhouses, row housing. And I don't think that changes the character of a neighborhood. And I think we need to have these conversations. That if you take down a single family home and put up 4 row houses, they're the same height as the single family home, but you will house 4 families on the same lineal meter of infrastructure that you housed 1 family before. This is just smart, not only for affordability, but to start combating the climate crisis. We'll use less energy. We'll encourage more people to walk, to bike. You'll build a more vibrant and lively and healthy community that way. And we really need to start making strides in this. And I think that's just critical.
Warren takes us down to see his current storage yard. The day has been a hot one, so I carry 6 cold cans. The skeletons are everywhere, the things he's pulled apart. We sit and drink on a gunship from the war in Vietnam. 91 of these were made and purposed in the war. This could be the one from that scene in Apocalypse Now. There are bullet holes up one side. This boat was built for homicide. Welcome to my ship, he smiles wide. I fall trees.